It is worth watching President Trump. He is mentally falling apart. And it's time to hold his feet to the fire because, when a president posts something like that his predecessor was assassinated in 2020 and it has been replaced by a robot, that's something that's not okay. This is a man who is one of the most powerful people in the world, has his hand on the nuclear football. And I'm really tired of people being like, oh, well, that's just Trump. It's not okay. You would not elect that man to run for, your local transportation department. So why people are shrugging when he is behaving the way he is not okay. You also asked me to talk a little bit about the Democrats, which I have not done. I haven't written about because honestly, part of Trump's nuttiness is at least in some part the attempt to throw so much crap at us that we're constantly scrambling. And you will notice if you read my letters, which once again are available for free, both on Facebook and on Substack, what you'll notice is they've gotten a lot longer. I try and throw short ones in there, but there's just so much every freaking day. So, I talk about the Democrats more than I write about them because they're not nuts. This whole idea of distracting us all the time works because you had to pay attention to all the details if you were running across the savannah, because otherwise you'd get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. I know nothing about paleography, really, so I probably got that wrong, but you get the point, right? So in this moment, one of the things that people have asked me about is, why didn't people talk about Joe Biden being senile when he was in office? First of all, in my observation, and I did not spend a huge amount of time with President Biden, but I did spend time with him. I did talk to him. What I always saw was a man with a fairly severe stutter when he got tired, the stutter got worse. But I never saw him unable to answer questions that were not scripted. And to have a really good command of a wide range of material that was important. Now, we know, of course, that Donald Trump doesn't even read his presidential daily briefing. So this idea somehow that he was kept hidden he was the president of the United States. Of course, he wasn't kept hidden. And one of the things that I look at when I evaluate presidents is, what are they getting done? And the Biden administration was one of the most consequential presidencies in American history. It got major legislation passed. It got major foreign relations stuff done. Now, if you think about that disastrous debate that Biden did, that was when he was negotiating the largest prisoner swap in American history that got back Evan Gershkovich for the United States and all these other prisoners as well. So somehow this idea that there was this great conspiracy and Biden wasn't really doing anything just doesn't hold water for me. So that's what I have to say about Biden and this idea that somehow there's, should be hell to pay for no one talking about Biden's abilities. I mean, I watched him really closely because, I was one of the few people who actually was reporting on that administration rather than on whatever Trump was doing in that moment. And I just find it enormously frustrating that so many people nowadays are saying, well, you didn't tell us, for example, stuff about the Budapest Memorandum, or you didn't tell us. It was all there. It was an incredibly transparent administration. And, they gave press conferences every day from all the major departments, and it just didn't get any press coverage. So that being said, now when we look at what the Democrats are doing, one of the things, again, that frustrates me is people talk about the Democrats as having doubled down on identity politics and so on. What the Democrats have done is they have permitted the Republicans to define them. So if you look at the Biden-Harris administration, certainly when Harris took over in the presidency, the presidential campaign of 2024, she literally never talked about identity politics. She literally never did that. It was the Republicans who pinned that on the Democrats. The Democrats kept trying to talk about kitchen table issues. Now, my impression of that is enormously important to people. As you know, my take on politics is that people need to feel that they are part of something larger, and that, at some point talking about gas prices is really not necessarily going to sway people. And we know, in fact, that it did not, for all that The media insisted that everybody was voting according to gas prices. In fact, it became very clear they were not. So, what the Democrats are doing now seems to me to be enormously healthy. Like I'm unbelievably sick of people sitting there saying, "Well, this is what the Democrats should have done in the past," because I don't believe in going backward, and I'm really tired of postmortems. But what you are seeing is an increasing number of Democrats and independents and former Republicans. Joe Walsh today, who was a Republican representative, joined the Democratic Party. What you're seeing is them starting to talk about the things that are important to them. And you're seeing it from a lot of different places, a lot of new voices and a new up and coming voices. And to my mind, people keep saying we need someone to gather around. I disagree with that. And I'm not a political operative, by the way, so you can discount this. But when I look at moments when there is extraordinary upheaval in a society, I don't really want to see one voice at the beginning. I want to see a lot of voices at the beginning talking about what's important to them, because they start to coalesce and say, okay, if you've got these 15 topics, all of us care about, and you can fill in the blank. To me, healthcare seems to be pretty high up on that list. But, as you know, one of my big things is NOAA, and scientific investigation, scientific research that's being gutted. That might not be your top issue. But the more we hear about these things, the more you will see people starting to examine how they think the country should go into the future. And once we have figured that out, and the definition of what that looks like may not come from a politician, or it may come from a politician you've never heard of. Once we have figured that out, then we will absolutely rally around different leaders who are doing that. And so I'm watching a lot of people really closely to see what they are saying and how they are saying it, and to see the new voices that are coming forward, the younger voices that you may not have ever heard of. And some of the people that I'm watching are not household names yet, but they could become household names. And that's, really interesting to me. So every time you hear a new voice, you hear people saying, well, he's running for office. She's running for office. What politician isn't running for office? They're testing the waters. They're seeing what's out there. That's great. They can do that. We need them to do that. And we need to see who we want to listen to and who we don't want to listen to. And the more we make our voices heard, the more they will get feedback on what they are saying. And we will start to coalesce around one person or another. And then when that moment comes, what you will see is the weighing of different constituencies. And, to go back for a second to Biden and Harris, one of the reasons that I was not keen on Biden dropping out of the race in 2024 was because Biden and Harris worked in 2020 because they nailed together two separate constituencies. And losing Biden out of that, it required Harris to move forward. She obviously brought an older looking, anyway, white man onto the ticket with her to see if they could pick up those same constituencies again. Obviously didn't work. But when you pick somebody at the end of the day, most people don't get their top choices because we're a big country, and you got to put a lot of different voices together into a coalition that enough people can live with, that they will vote for it. So in this moment, I am 100% not exercised about there not being one leader of the Democrats. I think it's good that there isn't one leader of the Democrats, because we get to hear a lot of different people, and we get to, more importantly, we get to hear a lot of different ideas. And what I am drawing on here to make this argument is not only the fact that this is how we got Abraham Lincoln, who was a very little known one-term representative in the 1850s, a corporate lawyer who listened to what people were saying and came out of the box and put down all the many rivals for the presidency in 1860, because enough people said, yeah, we can live with him. And we like the kind of stuff he's saying, that he became, obviously this person who defined America in the 1850s. But it's also exactly how we got Theodore Roosevelt, the Republican president in the early 1900s, who rose in a similar moment by listening primarily to Democrats he took the program of people like Grover Cleveland and the reformers that Grover Cleveland had brought to his ticket in the 1880s and 1890s. So what we're seeing, I think, is that same kind of ferment. So somebody's going to emerge, but you don't really want a front runner right now to lead a party because it just makes them incredibly vulnerable. And we don't need a mudslinging fight right now. We need people to focus on what they don't like about the Trump administration and what they would like to see America become.